Assalamualaikum. Open our eyes up as fuck. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Take this time to welcome everybody here. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to Atlanta. My name is Prince Mohammed right down the street. And I'm humbled and grateful for everybody that is here. I look forward to meeting everyone, getting to know you all. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. Assalamu alaikum.
This is the Sister Clara School Network Conference, and I want to start out asking Brother Jahideen to at least let us know what he'll be live streaming and how someone wants to access that. So, Brother Jahideen.
I'm to be or you look us on YouTube or Facebook. So you could just search it, put New Freedom Network, and the link of them. You can share it to your friends and family. We'll be here today recording the opening session. Thank you.
I seek the protection of Allah from Shaitan, the rejected enemy. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, dear esteemed educators. Assalamu alaikum. And I want to echo what Principal Khalil said and welcome you to Atlanta. And also, whenever I'm in the midst of educators, I feel so honored because your position is an elevated position. As you know, our dear Prophet be upon him, while he was the recipient of revelation, he was really an educator. And that was one of the big things that Allah sent him here to do, was to educate. So alhamdulillah, you hold that honorable position. And every single career in the world passes through your seats. You are the ones who groom every single being that's here as an educator. So thank you so very much. And I am here representing our school. Alhamdulillah. I have a brief presentation I'd like to do. Just to give you an update of who we are and where we are as an institution. I love this ayah from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that we are the people who must come together and strengthen each other and be patient in the process of doing this. And if we want progress and we want prosperity, then he says that it is in our coming together. And Allah says here that perseverance, patience, constancy, vie in such perseverance, strengthen each other and fear Allah that you may prosper. So we come together with that understanding. And And then Allah also tells us in the Quran that he gives us signs in his creation. And one of the beautiful signs that he gives in his creation is the tree. And I'm using this analogy of the tree because it's so beautiful when we talk about network. Oh, I'll read it. Allah says, have you not considered how Allah presents an example, making a good word like a good tree, whose root is firmly fixed and its branches high in the sky? I'm going to talk about the roots. So look at this beautiful picture. Isn't this beautiful? Yes. I like all the pictures. So we believe that our network is similar to a network of trees. And if you look at this, scientists have confirmed that trees form networks. Look at what they do. And they communicate with each other. Did you know that? So they talk to each other. And they provide an avenue of feedback. So give feedback, what's going on in the universe, what's going on in creation itself. They're talking to each other. And they make adaptation. So you can see there are different trees, different sizes and all this, and they make adaptations for us and for creation. Also, most importantly, they pass a legacy of other trees for future generations. Isn't that beautiful? And I think since we're doing this STEM weekend, it was great for us to look at science, right? So in looking at how we're similar, the trees provide carbon and other nutrients to seedlings, and those make resist disease. But when they're communicating, they communicate based on what you find when they're talking through the chemical that they're passing through, right? Okay, so this is their social network. This is how they network with one another. Now, picture us, and if you're in English, this is called a metaphor, right? A metaphor is where you compare two things that are not alike, but you find those similarities in them. And so this is the metaphor of us also. The Clara Mohammed School Network is like the trees. What we've done, we've formed in 2020 as a network of school leaders and educators. And with that, what we've done is we meet monthly, so we're communicating with one another, like the trees do. I thought this was a beautiful picture of trees join hands. And so they communicate monthly. We do surveys with one another. We have a Facebook page. So I'm going to pause. You can all go to our Facebook page, Clara Mohammed School Networks. Go ahead. Follow us, like us. We're on Instagram too. Go ahead. Be our friends. Okay. And we also have our own website, and we can see the link for that. So we support one another through works that we do. And I know Dr. Kadir is going to talk about some of that work, because I heard him the other day, and I told Dr. Patricia, who cannot be here, and she sends her regrets, cannot be here. I told her what a wonderful job he did talking about what we do as a network. And so we consult with one another, we do research, and we help one another as needed in the network. We share concerns, share ideas, and we share challenges with one another. And I often talk about when you're in a position as a leader of an institution, you need some safe space where you can go to unload and get support. And that's what we do in the network with one another as educators. We solve problems and find solutions. We do strategic planning. We just did our strategic planning and plan for the next 5 years. And inshallah, with that, that's the growth that we'll find, because we're also looking at professional development. We just did a year of professional development. We'll learn how to budget, we learn how to sustain our schools, and we learn how to market our schools and a number of things. So that was a year of professional development that we did with one another. And there's so much work that we do there. But this right here gives us our strength here, and we are likening ourselves to the truth. Our vision and our mission. Our vision is that we produce right-minded individuals with necessary skills to develop good family and community life for humankind. And then our mission is a little longer, but definitely more defined. And that mission is to facilitate collaboration and best practices, the growth and development of Sister Clara Mohammed School system in alignment with the Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the insights of Imam W.D. Muhammad. That's the mission of Clara Mohammed School Network. And now look at us. This is a bird's eye view of who we are. If you know our history, you know the Clara Muhammad School system began as the Muhammad University of Islam, where we had nearly 50 schools. Here's where we are today. We have about 12 schools, and we've identified them. If you know, most of them are on the East Coast, and there are some that we've seen on the West Coast, but they have not said, yes, clearly they are a part of the community of Imam Mohammed. And this is just a bird's eye view. We didn't have a school in Bermuda, alhamdulillah. So allow me to give you a little bit more details about our schools. These are the schools that have identified themselves in the Clara Muhammad School Network. And we have about 12 schools that have done that. Of those schools, 11 are active full-time schools, 3 are accredited schools, 1 weekly school, and 2 schools in restoration, meaning they're looking to reopen at Clara Muhammad School. They're working with us to get to that destiny to say, alhamdulillah, we're there. And I want to show you some of the things that we're looking at doing to put that stamp on you to say, yes, you are Clara Muhammad School. And as you notice, look at the names. They don't all say Clara Muhammad School. So you do not have to have that name per se, but there is something about them that makes them a part of our network, and that is that they follow the leadership of Imam Mohammed. And so that's the tafsir, that's the instruction that they'll use in that. So we use Quran, the Sunnah, and the tafsir of Imam Mohammed, and that's what makes them a part of our network of schools. And we're happy to say we have 2 of our schools that we call them international schools because they're online schools. And when we look at our K-12 schools, we have 4 that we have identified here. Alice Class Training Academy, the Clara Muhammad School of Queens, Clara Muhammad School of Schools of Atlanta. And so those are the K-12 schools we have here. And they range anywhere from Queens having just 6 students, and Imam Mohammed said we must keep it together even if we have only 1 school and 1 student. And we do that. So we have this one with 6 students. Then the next 142 students, 190 students, 257 students. And so that would be New York, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and Detroit. Our K-8 schools, those 3 schools for K-8, we have New York, Florida, Tennessee, and I think I have representatives from all those schools here this weekend. So our K-8 schools, enrollment between 15. And then international schools are our school in Bermuda, which 12 students there in Bermuda, and it is a Clara Muhammad school there. And our 2 online schools, New Medina and African Ummah Online School. And we do have a representative here from New African Online School who had a beautiful graduation this week. It was really beautiful. And then our weekend schools. And these schools are usually part of the masjid, but there are some that are independent of the masjid, but they still carry the name Clara Muhammad, or they consider themselves in the association of the Clara Muhammad school system. And that would be in DC, in New Jersey, and in Little Rock. The goals of our school, this is what I wanted you to look at. When we did our strategic planning, these goals came out of that planning. And that was the 12 schools came together, and we had a professional look at what are we looking at going forward. So this is for the next 5 years. We want to establish professional development program. We're doing that within the next 1 to 2 years. We're looking at doing an accreditation process for the Clara Muhammad schools, and that will we put that stamp on our schools. We're looking at designing a method to raise funds so that it is consistent for all of our schools. And we're looking at facilitating and supporting the opening of new schools. And last but not least, we're developing teacher certification. So let's talk with our individual teachers to certify teachers to say they are clarified, C-L-A-R-A, clarified. All right. And that we're going to do within the next 5 years. And then we're looking at having a unified curriculum frame. Meaning we have something that's structured, so all the schools use that framework to teach from when they're teaching. With our collaborative work, what we have here in working together, we have a wonderful program called the Medical Coding and Billing is Wonderful. We just did our first cohort for that. And it's really an opportunity for the broad community to connect. What happens is that anybody 16 and up can register for this course, and it is taught by a university professor, and they are certified to be able to do medical coding and billing. So anybody 16 and up, all the funds from registration and class itself goes directly to the school, solicited the participant. And we think that's a wonderful way for us to offer something to our community as well as income for our institutions. And then we're working with the National Science Foundation. That's part of what we're doing right now while we are having this conference this weekend. So we'll hear from them. We're working to do, this is for the work we're looking to do. So we're working to do collaboration with the National Science Foundation so we can really work on this STEAM effort that we're looking at. So we'll look at this weekend the work we'll need to do collectively in order for us to really solidify this work with the Science Foundation. And then we're looking at having grants for our schools, for the Oklahoma schools collectively, to be able to have grants. I thought this was important to give you, because I'm a visual learner, that I thought I should vision with you. Let me do this right quick. And so these are schools all over the country. And alhamdulillah, perfect timing. And just say that may Allah continue to favor us, and may we continue to give thanks and praise for the blessings. And we ask ourselves, which are the favors of your Lord will you deny? Ameen. This was, and these are examples of all of the schools that you mentioned. She gave you a list. These are examples of pictures of all of the schools that you mentioned earlier in the narrative, with just the names. And this is just a collection of their logos as well as their some scenes from them. But as you said, it was perfect timing to end with that last slide with which of the favors of our Lord will you deny. We're going to break now. Masala is located right here. The sisters' voodoo area and restrooms are down to your left. Brothers are down to your right, to your left. And brothers' restroom and voodoo station is down to your right. And so immediately after Salat, we'll reconvene. And then at that time, we'll say grace and get ready for our meal.
Now, in concluding this, when the slave traders and the black traders of Africa, traitors, different, traitors. When the slave traders and the traitors of Africa called themselves Muslims, for fighting each other and carrying on and weakening their people over there so that the white traders come in there and get us, take us on slave ships and bring us here. Now, all right? Yeah. So now, when all that happened, what you think was happening to our human soul? Let me tell you, God has given me an eye to see into the very abstract form of the human being by my study of the Quran. Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you what was happening. I know, as if I was there. The soul of those victims had given up on this world. They knew they were going to their death. They knew they were going to circumstances that were going to finish them off. They would never have their lives again. They knew that. But in their soul, they were saying, our children will one day be free again, and they will serve God. We have failed, but our children will one day serve God. And now their prayer that they prayed in the deep recesses of their soul has come true. And not only of the descendants of the black people of Africa, from Islam, coming to Islam, taking up the divine cause, but those who never were Muslims, their children from Christianity, their children from Judaism, their children from paganism, are embracing Islam in America. And we are going to build new Africa. New Africa, right here in the United States. Allahu Akbar. And the soul of those suffering victims, they're rejoicing because of us here today.
Legacy, legacy, brothers and sisters, let's celebrate. Legacy, legacy, Muslim Journal, 60 years today. Legacy, legacy, our history, our perspective, our way. Legacy, legacy, Islam is our path, success away. Legacy, legacy, visit muslimjournal.net online. Legacy, legacy, tech sponsor the 999. Legacy, legacy, 999, legacy, legacy, muslimjournal.net online. Legacy, legacy, brothers and sisters, let's celebrate. Legacy, legacy, Muslim Journal, 60 years today. Legacy, legacy, our history, our perspective, our way. Legacy, legacy, Islam is our path, success away. Legacy, legacy, visit muslimjournal.net online. Legacy, legacy, tech sponsor the 999. Legacy, legacy, 999, legacy, legacy, muslimjournal.net online.
KTVU and Montage and the Community Affairs Department of KTVU is very honored to have with us today in an exclusive interview the Honorable Wallace D. Mohammed, spiritual leader of over 2 million Muslims in America. Good evening. I'm Johnny Barnes-Selvin, and I'd like to start off by thanking Wallace D. Mohammed for taking time out in a very, very busy schedule. He's only here for less than 24 hours to be with us this evening. And I'd like to start right away. Thank you for coming.
Well, we're very pleased to be here.
I can't tell you how delighted I am to have you. I'd like to start right off by asking you how your father in 1930 started the Muslim movement that has grown to be such a vast movement by 1977.
Yes. Well, he was taught by a man called Fard Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
And this man introduced himself as a Muslim teacher, and later was called Prophet. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad saw him as a manifestation of God,
Mm-hmm.
or like Christ, God in the flesh. And with the teachings of Master Farad, he's called Master Farad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was able to understand the problems of the American so-called Negro, as it was called in those days by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He referred to as so-called Negroes. He understood that the problem was a need for identity, a need for an identification with some glorious past, and a need to have a leadership, black leadership, and someone to, well, push, as he said. He said our people, because they were pushed by the slave master, they don't understand, that they don't recognize that there's anyone over them unless they feel the push. So he believed in pushing, and by him being, well, an industrious man, every morning he would rise very early. He would work all day long until the very late hours of the night, sometime early hours in the morning. And he gave orders, and he pushed his people, and he insisted upon absolute total obedience.
This is your father.
My father.
Yes.
Right. And you know all the dietary laws and regulations, community regulations, no movies, no drinking, no smoking, and no fornication or adultery, no chasing the girls, that is, and all the other disciplines that he insisted upon really proved to be things that the people he attracted really wanted. They wanted to feel a control on their lives, and he knew that, and he was successful because of that. He started in 32 or late 31 or 32, and he just used the teachings that he got from Master Farad Muhammad, which was mainly teachings to instill a sense of superiority into the people, and to give them disciplines that they could follow, that would take them away from the old habits of laziness, not caring about their appearance. As you know, all the men wore white shirts and ties every day, like they were white-collar workers, but they were selling newspapers, and many of them were working on as cleanup men in stores and doing other.
Excuse me. Along with discipline and a sense of one's own value that your father worked very hard to instill in his followers. There is one thing that you said as we were going along. You said that Master Fard Muhammad came and was interpreted as Allah in man's form. Now that you're part of the world community of Islam, this is one of the changes that's come about in the past few years. Now that you're part of the world community of Islam, do you still hold to the belief that Allah came in man's form?
No, we don't. I don't completely reject. There's something true about it, but I think just the failure on the part of the leader, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to find the right words, because he taught me. I grew up under him as his son, and I know what he taught me. It didn't give me the same idea that I get when I read of incarnation, incarnation, God incarnate, Christ God. You know, I didn't get that same concept. I didn't get the same belief.
So, in other
So-
words, you might have believed that
Yeah.
that Master Fard Muhammad was a man who was imbued with the Spirit,
Yes.
but not necessarily Allah.
No, not a man who was directed, somehow helpless to do his own will. An instrument of God. That's the
see.
idea, I think.
Okay, there are a number of things that have changed with your taking over the reins, essentially. And before we get into that, I'd like to find out how how your father prepared you. From what I understand, you were groomed from the time you were a child to step into this position that you now hold as chief spiritual leader. What kind of education did you have?
Well, there was no special courses put together or written up for me. The thing that prepared me, I believe, was the mystery that was created around me.
What do you mean by that,
Well,
the mystery?
I was told from earliest years that Master Farad Muhammad named me while I was in my mother, while I was yet in my mother, and that he predicted it would be a boy, and he gave me his name, one of his names that he used, which was Wallace D. Muhammad, and that I would follow in my father's footsteps and become a great helper to my father. And my
So
father and
before
mother
you were born,
that's
the
right.
myth had started. You
That's
were
correct. That's
being
right.
represented.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. And that was told to me over and over again, all of my years. And I had other ideas about what I wanted to be. At one time, I wanted to be the electronic technician, and at other time, I wanted to be a school teacher. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to turn out to be, but those things were planted in my mind, and I guess I was rebelling against it. But I remember in Chicago, I believe in '56 it was, we have a testifying night. The minister would say, "If anyone would like to come up and express himself." So I had a friend, Leroy, I grew up with. He said, "Let me show you how to do it." He was so shy, and I was very shy. So Leroy got up and he spoke, and we were always challenging each other. So just to show him that he couldn't do something I couldn't do, I got up. And when I got up and faced the people, I began to speak. And all of us, before I realized it, the shyness had gone, and I was preaching like a minister.
I see. Did you not have any training in Arabic?
Yes, I did. But
now that's
there
rather
were others.
unusual. You must admit.
No. It wasn't. No, it was. I would say there was really an effort on my father's part to see that his sons learned something about the Arabic language, and that was Akbar, my youngest brother, and myself, and a couple other brothers. They studied some too, but he did want his youngest sons, Akbar and myself, to learn the Arabic language. But in the class that I graduated from under Professor Jamil Diab was about 19 students.
I see. So you were preceded by a myth and educated then in the ways of Islam as you grew up. There are a number of things that your father stated and what the Muslim wants. He said, we want justice, we want freedom, we want equal membership in society, and we want to establish a separate state or territory on this continent or elsewhere. We also feel that our former slave masters are obligated to provide land which should be fertile and minerally rich, and that they should, in fact, for the first 20 or 25 years when this land is being established, support it and help maintain it.
Yes.
Is this still the policy? Is this your policy?
No. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he felt that he just gave himself to the teachings of Master Farad Muhammad, and he interpreted those teachings himself. And that was you heard the Yaqub story, right? The story of Yaqub.
Would you repeat that,
the scientist?
please,
Well, there's a scientist by the name of Yaqub who made the Caucasian race by mating lighter black people together, and as they got a lighter child, they would mate lighter ones with lighter ones until finally a Caucasian race, you know. And the idea, I mean, his plan, Yaqub's plan, caused such an uproar in the society that he belonged to, until the leaders came to him and said, "Well, can we make some kind of agreement? Is there any way to satisfy you and keep you out of our society?"
Mm-hmm.
So if you will accept exile, how can we satisfy you? So he said, "Well, if you give me enough supplies to take care of myself and my followers for 20 years, I will accept to be exiled,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and won't give you any trouble. You leave in peace." So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad took that to me as being a hint to him from Master Farad, that when you make trouble for these people and they don't like you anymore, tell them you accept exile and take care of us for 20 years.
Are you even thinking about exile yourself? Do you think in those terms at all?
No, if I become a wicked person, I would like to exile myself.
But as far as a separate state or
The only
separate
people need to
nation,
be exiled are people who can't live in peace with other people.
all right, then that's a big change there. Another change, and again, I'm just going to go down the list of things that were formally connected as with the Bilalian or Black Muslim movement as philosophy. The white man is the devil quietly, philosophy quietly died out around 1975. And how did that happen? Why did that happen?
And I like the way you put it. I believe you're correctly informed. It quietly died out.
Yes.
Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad himself was killing it himself.
I see.
In the last few years of his life with us, may peace be upon him, he in fact, he pleaded to the community almost to accept Caucasians, at least accept them as people deserving respect from us.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if they can treat you well and respect you, then you have to return that, you know. And he had opened up businesses and had created a lot of business associations and relationships with us and Caucasian people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he was all the time telling us at the private meetings of the staff that you have to accept the Caucasian as a man, as a human being, and don't be ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's don't be ignorant, because some of the members weren't aware that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was speaking from scriptural terminology when he was calling white people devils, you know.
I see,
and
yes.
The concepts had to be understood. There was a lot of allegorical and symbolic meanings there that had to be understood. He knew that, but many of his followers didn't, and he chose not to tell them, because if he had told them, they would have perhaps rejected him.
I see.
He said he used these things as attractive bait. At the time, the conditions were there, and his kind of teaching was very attractive, and he wanted the people, so he used it.
I see. So at the moment, today in a mosque, you'd never ever hear that spoken.
Devil?
Yes.
Certainly. We call the white people devils, the black people devils.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. When they act like devils, we call them devils.
Okay, when they act like devils. Well, is the term devil then used more for characteristics that you would consider evil, whether they're displayed by a black or a white or an Asian or whatever race? It's the characteristic, the trait, the act, and not the color.
And not the flesh, right?
Okay. I have so many questions for you. There's one this past year in Washington, the Hanafi sect held 134 people hostage for 39 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that was caused, from all that we've learned, by an internal Muslim conflict. I was wondering what role you played in that. And the other question I have, if any, in trying to facilitate and end that siege, facilitate the ending of the siege. And along with that, what power do you have over sects like the Hanafi? Exactly how far does your power extend?
Well,
a lot of questions.
Well, I don't think I have any power over the Hanafis.
Mm-hmm. And why is that?
They respect us as Muslims, and we respect them as Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
I felt well obligated to do whatever I could to protect the hostages if there was any opportunity for me to do that. And I went to Washington during that siege.
Mm-hmm.
And I made an attempt to see the mayor, but I accepted that the mayor and the police department, they were in charge
Yes.
Of what was going on there, and I was just there to just taking a long shot that my presence, they might desire my presence. So I'm here in case they need me. I don't have to be called from Chicago.
Right.
I'm right here, you know. I felt obligated because the Hanafis had charged the Nation of Islam with the massacre of the leaders,
Of the
Mr.
Hanafi.
Khalifa's family as children. And there were persons who went in the names of the community. They used the X, you know, and they were identified as members of our community. I don't have any knowledge that those persons were really members. I don't know whether they just used those names to cover up something or not. And then they could have been fanatical members, you know. So I felt obligated to do something, at least not only for the hostages, but also for the Hanafis. I called Mr. Khalifa and I told him that I've heard how he felt, and I want him to know that my sympathies had always been with him and his family.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So that would have helped to facilitate somewhat.
Well, I hope it did, and I believe it helped some.
Well, having you there, I think, was an important thing. If as long as they realized that you were there, are there sects that violently disagree with the Nation of Islam, the Black Muslim movement, joining the world community of Islam?
I don't know of any.
You don't know of any?
I don't know of any. No.
All right. Is the Nation of Islam, the 2 million or so Muslims in this country, are they in a fairly together as far as philosophy, theology is concerned?
Well, there is we're going through a learning period, you know, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he prepared the membership to make the transition from the symbolic teachings, identifying devil as a physical object, a physical person, and identifying God and a physical person. Well, he prepared the community for a smooth transition from that kind of idea, belief, by teaching us that there is coming. He says, someone will teach you religion after me. He told us this. He said, someone will teach you religion after me. He says, I'm not teaching you religion so much now. He says, what I'm doing is trying to clean you up. And what he meant that he was taking care of the social problems. He was mainly interested in taking care of the social problems. And he had to separate us from the Caucasian people and even calling them devils. It was nothing that he invented. He was a Bible student too. His father was the son, he is the son of his father, who was a Baptist preacher for 50 years.
I see.
And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was very, very well familiar with the Bible from cover to cover. And in the Bible, he used to say that Jesus called the Jew a devil, you know, said, you are the children of your father, the devil, you know. So he spoke from the Bible, and I think he saw something like the Japanese people. The Japanese people, I heard Chinese people, no, pardon me, the Chinese people said when the Caucasians, when they were bitterly against the Caucasians, when they would come among them, they would point them out and say foreign devil.
I see.
Call it foreign devil, you know. And I remember, I can't recall the author's name now, is the people who walk in darkness. He uses the words from Julia, a slave, and during the days of plantation slavery, and he uses her words. He says that Julia said that she couldn't understand the white man evil treatment of the black people in slavery, the slave masters' evil treatment of the black people. Says they look, speaking of the Caucasian people, she says they look like God in the face, but they act like the devils in their hearts, you know. So I think the suspicion had already been created. The black people who were mistreated were already suspecting that the white man might be a flesh devil, a living devil in the flesh, you know.
So he took that.
He took it right. He used it, and it was good. And he separated the people. It was good, because at that time, the people who we were dealing with were those who had suffered the most under the Caucasian abuses, you see. And they couldn't be mixed with Caucasians. He wouldn't be able to control his audience if he had those people mixed, especially doing the therapeutic job that he did.
Okay, so
bringing out a lot of demons.
There is a period then when he felt he had to isolate.
Certainly, and he was
people.
wise in doing so. Very wise in doing so.
I'm going to ask you about the conflict that is quite widely known between your father and yourself, and what the nature of it was, and how it was resolved finally, as it was resolved, obviously.
The conflict between myself and my father
and yourself.
Right.
Yes.
Well, there was some conflict, all right, but I think he was playing the role of a teacher, and sometimes the teacher has to hide certain facts from the student. And looking back on my father's treatment of me, how I rebelled, and he excommunicated me, and would tell me I could come back. I came back. He would put me in position of minister again. He would set me up before his ministers and point to me as a special person, And he did this several times. Excommunicated me and returned me right back to my place of honor.
I see.
So looking back on that, I think the Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't really disagree with me, but he had to protect what he was doing.
Okay.
It wasn't time.
There's another question concerning leadership that I'd like to ask. In Alex Haley's book on Malcolm X, he states that Malcolm X was assassinated by Muslims, and the implication or statement, as he sees it, is that this assassination took place because of an internal kind of struggle over power. What explanation is given, if any, to novitiate Muslims, to the person who's just joined the mosque who might be curious about that? How has that gone down in Muslim history?
Yes, well, I sensed among the following that there was sadness, a deep hurt and sadness existing in the membership because Malcolm had been separated from the organization, the nation, and I felt that the people, not only Malcolm needed restoring, but the people needed healing. They needed to be healed, freed from that kind of hurt that was in them, that I noticed in them. So I asked the membership to accept Minister Malcolm back as a minister of the Nation of Islam, who had done a great work. This was, I guess, not quite a year after I had come into office.
I see.
Maybe 6 to 7 months after I came into office. And I found that people welcomed this, and they were very happy. They were very pleased with my decision.
Okay, and the wound is healing, but what about his assassination? Is there any explanation for that?
Well,
during
the 60s.
But what is the explanation?
During the 60s, there was the race conflict was so many dangerous elements were involved, and the people were very fiery and violent prone, even violent prone. And I think that a lot of those members from the, I would say the Black Revolution, came into the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam was a Black revolution, but of altogether different kind, of a different nature. And I think those persons came in, and they didn't have time to really learn the teachings. They just came in identifying with Black supremacy and down with the white man, and they thought that thing was our thing, but it was wrong. And I think perhaps some of those people came in and got the wrong idea, and they were given to violence, so they might have done these acts.
I see. You're financially, you are growing. Your resources were 2 years ago well over $30 million in real estate, businesses of all sorts. The bakery we know well in the Bay Area anyway is doing a very fine job and is thriving because it's serving the community well. What plans do you have? You've made a lot of changes. What plans do you have now that you're leader to, what plans do you have for the future?
Well, I would say outwardly, the business achievements speak very well for the community, and we all are very proud of it. But we lacked management to equal what was on the outside, and I pulled a team of business people together, accountants, certified accountants, and attorneys, etc. I pulled them together, and with the staff, with the ministers, we began to really study the business of the community. And we found that the business was poorly managed. Income was being counted as, charity was being counted as business income. Whenever a business didn't produce, the business couldn't be closed because this would reflect bad on the community. So what would happen? Charities would be put into that business just to keep it going. You see, so many of our businesses were looking good because they were really financed or supported by charities.
I see.
So we stopped that.
I see.
And when we stopped that, some businesses had to close. But now we're beginning to move uphill again. We begin to move in the right direction, move toward accomplishing things again for our community in the line of business progress. And we are doing it because we are finding persons who have business qualifications and who really have business minds and want to devote themselves full time to business. We're giving the businesses to those persons if they can afford to buy them. If they can't afford to buy them, we're making easy terms for them.
I see.
Now, and the businesses are available to everybody, but we have applicants from the community, and so far we have been successful in finding people qualified in the community to run these businesses.
And all races and all from whatever background.
We don't have that many outside of the race in the community, but if they make application, they'll get the
Well, that's wonderful.
Too.
I can't tell you how pleased I am that you gave us this time, this exclusive interview. We've run out of time and I have a million more questions, but I have to stop now. So I want to thank you very, very much, the Honorable Wallace D. Mohammed, for being with us today. Thank you. I'm Johnny Barnes-Selvin. Good night.
They're going after the wrong thing, as we have gone after the wrong thing after we got equal opportunity in this country and laws passed to protect our citizenship and our rights of citizenship. We started celebrating, having a good time, playing, laughing, dancing, getting high, and we forgot what God has done for us over all these many generations. God has permitted us to be used and abused more than any other soul of a human being. God has permitted that soul of the African people, African American people, or the African people, to be used and abused. But the God that permits that is obligated to do justice by everything. So in the measure that He has allowed us to be deprived, He must award us, and at least that measure or greater. So when we look at the sad history, as those sad turns of events in our life, beginning with the first one, putting us upon slave ships and bringing us here to be slaves as property of others, and following that at the terrible events in our life, when we look at those events and see the damage to our psyche, the damage to our life as human beings, and the threat to our future as human beings, when we see that and realize that we have overcome that, we're still here, we're still human, and we're still performing very excellent way, men and women, that says to us that God has not yet finished rewarding us. God is not through with us. Freedom and equal opportunity here, that's just the necessary situation or the necessary condition for us to begin doing what God has formed us for. And I say formed us We are no more Africans like the Africans of the continent of the motherland of Africa. We are new people. We have a new mind. We have a new spirit. We have new sensitivities as a people. We have a brand new ethos as a race. So we are different. We are different. We are different in the abstract picture, and we are different in the physical picture. We are not abstractly the same. That is, our mentality is different, spirit different, sensitivity is different, aspirations different, humor different. We are not Africans anymore of the motherland. We are Africans of this land. New Africans. New Africans.
Legacy, legacy, brothers and sisters, let's celebrate. Legacy, legacy, Muslim journal, 60 years today. Legacy, legacy, our history, our perspective, our way. Legacy, legacy, Islam is our path, success away. Legacy, legacy, visit muslimjournal.net online. Legacy, legacy, text sponsor the 999. Legacy, legacy, 999, legacy, legacy, muslimjournal.net online. Legacy, legacy, brothers and sisters, let's celebrate. Legacy, legacy, Muslim journal, 60 years today. Legacy, legacy, our history, our perspective, our way. Legacy, legacy, Islam is our path, success away. Legacy, legacy, visit muslimjournal.net online. Legacy, legacy, text sponsor the 999. Legacy, legacy, 999, legacy, legacy, muslimjournal.net online.
You are the spiritual leader of 2.5 or 3 million African American Muslims.
That's what I'm told.
That's what you're told. Well, that's what I'm told as well. And that I do know for a fact that you are a person, a man who is greatly respected, and someone who whose opinions are strongly sought after. So I don't think there could be a better time in history than to come to you and ask you to help all of us understand Islam and really help us develop an insight into what's happening. From your point of view, what is happening in terms of Osama bin Laden and his version of Islam?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Osama bin Laden is really has been accepted as the leader of Islamic community life worldwide, or even anywhere in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure of that. I would think that he's not. I would think that the Islamic world is still divided by many different madhabs or schools of thought, and also by many personalities like Osama bin Laden. But definitely he has captured the attention of the world because he's identified as the mastermind behind the horrible thing that was done to our country. I feel that most of the Muslims of the world are relying upon their local people, the religious leaders, for understanding and guidance. And a great number, maybe many times bigger than that number, are depending on themselves. They go to their holy book privately, and they depend on their own opinions and mind and thinking. And thank God that most of the Muslims don't accept to have their freedom taken away. Most of the Muslims, even in countries where the freedom is taken away, most of the Muslims insist that they go privately to the Word of God, and they know our Prophet Mohammed, they know his life, and that's what is really ruling in the Islamic world. Even though you can't see that, because the powerful Islamic states, the political order, the governments, are not accepting that the people express themselves openly and freely.
Among those who are not Muslim, there is the tendency, I have read a lot of articles, there is the tendency to take the belief of an Islamic cult or sect and generalize it to the world's entire population of Muslims. For example, I read an article by one writer who said, at one time, the President Bush is trying to convince the world that Muslims are peaceful, that a handful of Muslims are doing these bad things. But what I'm seeing now is so many Muslims who agree with Osama bin Laden that this must be what Islam basically teaches. How do you respond to that?
The developments in the world presently, not to mention the crusades that's still in the minds of the Muslim world and the world, and not to mention 1947 when Israel was established, or when they were establishing Israel as a state in what was the home of the Jews and the Palestinians. The things that are happening now, like the problem for the Palestinians and the Israelis, and Kashmir in India, all of these troubles are on the minds of Muslims, especially Muslim leaders. And we can't just look at what happened on the 11th of September and isolate it from all these other things. What we have is a damaged psyche of the Muslim world, mostly the leaders. They have a damaged psyche. When I say a damaged psyche, I'm sure they won't agree with me, but when I say a damaged psyche, I mean that these troubles of the world, in the world, that have been used by them in their thinking, to say that this is why we don't have peace in the world. This is why. It's because Christianity fought against us and the Crusades, and because colonial days, they imposed their life on us in our countries under colonialism, and under the colonial states. We had to give up our life, and because of what they did in the Middle East to establish Israel over there on us and take Jerusalem and make this capital, all those things are on their mind. So with these things on their mind, naturally, they would get bitter, become more bitter and more bitter, and some enrage and become very, very destructive, self-destructive as well. So we have to look at the whole picture to see what is the psyche of the Muslim world. And when I say the Muslim world, I'm speaking mainly of Muslim leaders who influence the Muslim world to their way of thinking, etc. Now, there are readings in the Quran, portions of the Quran, that address the problem that the Palestinians are having in Israel. But never are we to become the wrongdoers in the eyes of God, because we want to get at wrongdoers.
That's right. Yeah, I feel like too. Represent. All right. Assalamu alaikum. Well, you had another taste of Southern hospitality. You've had our fried fish, and you had some wings, and some baked beans, and rice, and salad, and hopefully that filled you physically. And now we're getting ready to get back on to a spiritual track of food. We want to thank our community members for joining us, and we hope that you stay through at least a little bit of our presentation. this evening. But this is the Clara Mohammed Schools Network. It is a national network of the 12 or so remaining online and full-time Clara Mohammed schools in the nation. One time, I told that there are Clara Mohammed schools throughout the United States. Many school programs now are just the weekend programs, but they're still going on in many communities. They are very hopeful that perhaps they can revitalize their Muhammad schools that they had once held within their communities. We're going to go on now. Please continue to finish eating. And also, today you had as dessert, you had a bean pie from Sweet Tooth Bakery. And we're so delighted. This is Safrida Bacha, the Imam Sheikh Ibrahim Bacha's wife, who started that business with that. And she just happened to be here today during a prayer time. And I asked her, "Do you happen to have any pies at the house?" Just have, every day you get up and you just make bean pies, right? And so she said, "Yes, I do happen to have some." So I said, "Well, we would love to have that as our dessert this evening." And that is also a specialty of the Islamic community, and not African American Islamic community under Hajj Muhammad and War Muhammad. Bean pie, so you got a taste of that as well. In addition to our Southern regular traditions and things. At this time, we're going to have our keynote address this evening from Dr. Kadir Abdul-Shakur, and he is a long-term member of our community. And I'm going to let him tell you just a little bit about his background, and then also what he wants to share with you this evening. Then after that, we're going to talk about a conference overview for the weekend and what we hope to accomplish this weekend. And we're going to acknowledge and recognize our sponsors. If you registered for the conference, you received a bag from the Amman Trust Fund, and we're going to have Bud Williams, who was a former member of the Atlanta Masjid community, is going to just bring us some remarks in terms of kind of investments that they do. And they'll also acknowledge the rest of our sponsors for this weekend's conference. So, Brother Kadir.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammadin. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. So, first of all, let me begin by saying that when you table, you'll find a little QR code. So if you have a QR reader on your phone, you just turn your camera on and hit that QR code, and you pull up. If you don't have a QR code, there's no problem. At the top, the URL, a bit.ly address, open your web browser, type HTTP, and then the rest of the web, and be able to pull up a copy of the presentation. To share with anybody that you want to, for the sake of Allah, we always try to do this work together. So today, inshallah, Dr. Khan told me to tell you something about myself. So, myself, brother, let's go. We want to do the role of Khalifah. We want to touch a little bit on history because it's important to understand history in order to the future. Then we want to look at Khalifah in the Quran. I see Allah Almighty is really inviting us to establish. And then we want to look at STEM and STEAM from the context of a Quranic perspective. And we want to look at how these concepts really form the idea of Khalifa. And then we want to talk about what we can do as a community continue to grow. So we'll begin here when reading from the Quran. Allah says, وَإِذْ قَالَ Allah speaking of, Allah says to his angels, He's going to create in the earth. Jailu Ardi Khalifah. Jailu Ardi Khalifah. That's important. Allah says here, He's created in the earth a Khalifah. So now, we know that typically the word Khalifah, as appears in the Quran, is translated in the Roman language Caliph. Caliph. And then if we look at history, we know that we had Khalifah Rashidin, the four righteous caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. And then we would know that after that, when we study that history, when we really read that history, we study it, we'll find that after the four Khalifah Rashidin, we had other men who became caliphs, and some righteous men. Some were concerned about advancing Islam, and some were concerned about advancing their own purposes. Now, I'm sharing with you this because I did this presentation to a group some time ago, and they told me, brother, you can tell people that they're not supposed to know that. But it's important that we understand this. So what happened? So the idea of Caliph began to take on meaning of I'm in charge, I'm the leader. It became a political connotation. And ultimately, the form died. It appeared in places in the middle, different countries had a caliph. And it actually died off in the early 1920s. I think the last country that had it was Turkey, I believe it was. But the point is that Allah says in the Quran, He's going to create an infinite. How could it die? Allah's creation is infinite, and Allah's omnipotent. How could it die? Maybe we didn't quite understand what the Almighty was telling us. So on the next slide, you'll see I have from the Quran, Surah 38, Ayah 26. And here it tells about the characteristics that Allah Almighty says that the Caliph should have. And He talks about the Caliph being honest and just and fair. And these characteristics are characteristics that were present, evident in the life of Khalifa Rashidin. These are the men who were close to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were honest, they were fair, they were just, they were not greedy, they were not selfish, they were spiritually inclined, but they were also understood the relationship between the Quran and the creation. They understood that there was a unique relationship between the Quran and the creation. They understood that. And as people came later on before them, they began to, the Islamic world began to develop different ways. So if we look at the word itself, it means, the word itself means that a succession. It's like, for example, family. Father, husband, and wife have a child and children. Marry the kids to the family name to the next level. And their children and their children, the family name to another level. And their children take the family name to another level. The word itself means it has to do with a progression, a succession, a successor, someone is superseded. Someone passed away, somebody else comes in. But the person that comes in builds on qualities of who was before them. That's what it means. So when Allah says, Adi, Khalifa, He's saying, now I am going to create a Khalifa Fil Ard. Now, well, wait a minute now. So we couldn't see it coming in the mid-20s. Khalifah feel hard. No, what is that telling us? Allah the Almighty is telling us that He's going to create this characteristic, this succession, this progression of people who have these characteristics that are in the material world, in the everyday world. You'll see them in your life. You'll see them in your business. You'll see them in your interactions. It's hard. They're not going to be superficial people. They're not going to be people held on a pedestal somewhere. They're going to be people that you know and you pray with. But you recognize in them qualities that are worthwhile for your community, for your total community. So, in order to understand, when we get to that point, then we see, okay, now we have to think closely about what it is that we're trying to do. In Islamic history, there was a period after the college went all straight. Some were real good people, some were real righteous men. They were trying to do good things. They established salons for knowledge and they established places for learning. Some were very, very good. Some were not. Some were despotic women. But as this is going on, when it finally progressed, Muslim scholars, Muslim intellects, got to the point where they wanted to separate those things that they felt would encourage or build their spiritual life. Refer to these things as the things of Sharia. And those things that were worldly things, they refer to these things as Sharia. The spiritual life. So this division came in the body of Muslim thinkers. There were those who supported Sharia and those who supported Gary Sharia. And when he took that position, what happened was that the spiritual component, the beauty of the Quran, was ostracized, separated from creation. So you had those who were knowledgeable in the Quran and were great spiritual leaders, but they weren't in touch with the creation. And you had those that were in touch with the creation who weren't in touch with the spiritual dimension. However, Allah says in this ayat that He was going to create the succession of people in the earth. That means if we look around, we should be able to see them. We should be able to look around through our history and see this progression of people. We go back to what's called the Golden Age of Islam. Golden Age of Islam, 19th to 15th century. Now, this is an interesting, fascinating time because in this time, the scholars, and who were knowledgeable, they weren't knowledgeable in medicine. They weren't knowledgeable in biology. They were knowledgeable in multi-discipline. And I put three of them in here for you to look at. And Hassan was the first one mentioned, the man who wrote 400 books. He wrote 400 books. He was a knowledgeable person. He wrote over 400 books. What was his characteristics? He was first a scholar or a dedicated theologian. He studied Quran. He knew the Quran. And the Quran inspired him to write. He wrote a book of love. I just highlighted him. Then the same person I wanted to call you to, a sister from Morocco, Fatima. This sister, she and her sister were the daughters of a wealthy merchant. And what he did is his daughters studied Quran. Studied Quran. And they became very knowledgeable of Quran. But she was also a mathematician. She studied inheritance. So she became a scholar of Islam and also a scholar of Quranic inheritance. And she's established a university that still exists to this very day in Morocco. The oldest university in the world, was established by a Muslim sister who was grounded in Quran, used the heritage from her father, built a school, and that school is still existing this very day. And the third piece I wanted to call you to is one that's commonly known as Ibn Sina, or the Western have a different name for him, but Ibn Sina is his Arabic name. This man was a scholar of religion. He was a scientist. He was a mathematician. He was a doctor. He wrote a book, The Canons of Medicine, was used in Europe for 700 years to train doctors. Now think about this. Here's a man that took the Quran into himself, into his soul, his existence. He took the Quran, internalized the Quran, and he allowed the Quran to spring forth and study creation. And we rewarded him for that, so he could provide information for 700 years. So Allah does give us examples, and they're around us. We just have to look for them. So now that brings us to the next topic here. In this, just like in the history, where there's a tendency to separate spiritual matters from secular matters, or religious matters, Sharia, from non-religious matters, God of Sharia, we see the same thing happening in the modern world. We see the exact same thing happening in the modern world. We have the emphasis on the separation of churches, emphasis that these two things cannot be taught at the same time. And now, especially now, all this just going on around the country. But think about this. Allah the Almighty said He was going to create His vicegerent, His succession of leaders who had balance in their spiritual life, their intellectual life, who had the balance in their moral life, and in their knowledgeable life, who had this balance and who would be able to lead society for generations and generations of it. One group would follow another group, one group would follow another group, one group would follow another, and continue to grow. So today we have this is on students not doing well in school, so it's emphasis on STEM. I remember back in the 50s when there was emphasis on Sputnik and space and all that kind of stuff. All these things. What happens is that with academics, deny the existence of spirituality or deny the existence of revelation, they try to explain everything. They try to explain everything, excluding the spiritual dimension. They try to explain everything by excluding the experiment, the spiritual dimension. They even go so far as to take their own scholars who have acknowledged that their success was predicated upon their faith. Albert Einstein, for example. They take their own scholars and deny that they were religious people. So we have this idea of STEM and STEAM. And it says science, technology, engineering, mathematics, science, technology, art, engineering, art, mathematics. And we're given this as the new way to move. This is what we got to be doing. We got to do STEM. I feel that that's new at all. I admit that the S, if you think about it a different way, instead of thinking of S as being science, think about it as being the spiritual connection with the Creator. And if you think about M as mathematics, don't think about it just as mathematics. Think about it as the laws of creation, created by the Creator that's governing everything in creation. So you have the spiritual side on one end, mathematics on the other side. Technology, engineering, art comes from the balance and the interaction of the Creator. And that's what STEM is. It has more to do with bringing alive the relationship between revelation and creation. It has anything to do with what people project. We have to understand that all the things that we see around us, we think are so fascinating, not fascinating because we thought of. They're fascinating because Allah Almighty put in creation. We just observe them. Oh, Look how the plane weighs 10 can fly. How did that happen? That fact, then we have to be careful to be sure that we stay completely focused on the relationship between the spiritual dimension and the creation, and use not to investigate the science, technology, and news. Now, the other thing that this, I mean, that allows secession to continue. We said beginning his birthday, the OCALIBH ended in the 1920s. But Allah said he's going to create a Khalifah in the earth, fil ard. So it didn't end. We just stopped looking for it. So now we got back to look for it. Where do we see, when have we seen, how can we find evidence in the history of the human man where we find men and women in society and people who would put their love for Allah the Almighty first and take their time and develop in progressive ways, take their time and develop in a microwave age, take a baked potato, put it in the oven, microwave in 3 minutes, you got your baked potato. So we want everything instant. And the people who are brainwashing us know that. They want to give it to, here, do it this way, you get it done faster. Do it this way, get it faster. That's not Allah's way. That's our way. That's the secular way. So we look back in history and we see people, we see him pop up. How could this man spend all these years in a South African jail? And the people who put him in prison recognized he was a man of value. How could that happen? He didn't do it. They put him in a prison in South Africa. He spent almost all his life. And the same people that put him in prison recognized that he had something to contribute. How can you have people in America who are descendants of enslaved people who were non-producers, working with hands, didn't go to school, but invented, changed the dynamic of this country, changed the relationship between, let's call it the industry and doing things by hand. Things we don't even think about. We drive down the street, stop corners in traffic like that. We don't think about who made it, how they got there. We use a ballpoint bill. We don't think about where it came from. If we look at that history, we'll find that our ancestors, those who never gone to a school, couldn't read, couldn't figure, but it made great inventions to advance human society. Allah said he was going to create a Khalifah in the earth. And he'll never make a mistake. We just got to look for it. So our challenge is to be able to recognize the strength that he has already built us with. I tell people all the time, I say, Muslim Americans are special. Most of us were born here, came through the enslaving of our ancestors, and those who migrated here and choose this lifestyle recognize the value of it. Muslim Americans are special people. We have a special responsibility because Allah has placed us in the world, has denied the existence of him as a spiritual source of revelation, and still allowed the process to show that we are the ones that have to put the spiritual dimension back in. And when we do that, we will have done our job. That's not going to happen in one lifetime. Me and you be gone, our children be gone, our grandchildren be gone. But that's the way patience is. We just got to do our part. Do a little bit at a time. Do our part. And Allah will bring about what he wants us to have in the end. So what must we do? We must recognize that our strength, the thing that makes us so powerful is our spiritual connection. It's not anything else. It's not our knowledge of mathematics, not the math major in college. It's not that. It's not our science by itself per se. It's our recognizing that all the things that we see in creation are bound to the Creator. And we can see creation as the consequence of studying the laws that the Creator has put in place. And thanking the Creator for what He's given us. And then we can see Khalifah again. So we have a special mission, a special responsibility, a special charge. First of all, we have to be patient, just like we've been doing. Secondly, this should probably be first, we have to never, ever lose sight of the value of revelation and spirituality and what we do. Everything else is secondary. I'll close with this one comment, final thought. Years ago, I was invited to do a graduation in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm sorry, Bob, forget to sit and took me right, I passed away. But he invited me and Mohammed to come and be the guest, invited guest, special guest. And he invited me to do the keynote for graduation. And during that address, I spoke about revelation, the foundation of science. Just like we talking about today. And afterwards, Mohammed told me, he said, brother man, he said, there are people out there that need to hear what you say. He said, I'm not talking about Muslims. There are people out there, good people, who recognize that there is a connection between spirituality, revelation, and creation. There are people out there who recognize that. But for one reason or another, maybe they just don't say anything. So we have to be the ones that carry the torch. We have to be the ones that understand that our mission is more than a place that looks like edifice. Although that's important. I was just telling sisters, I have to take my head off to Atlanta. Because all the hell that we've seen through the Nation of Islam, I've been around since 71. All the hell we've seen, they stood up, they hung tough right here in Atlanta. And that's Allah showing us that it can be done. We can't be backbiting. No, that's Allah showing us that it can be done. And when this network formed up, 2020, when Sister mentioned, that's Allah showing that it was time to take the thing to the next step. All the efforts were great, but it's time to move to a new dimension. And when Sister broke forth the picture with the tree roots, I've never seen that before. But that is so true. That's the network. And the network for us, is to understand how powerful, how absolutely powerful Quran is. There's nothing to be taken lightly. It's absolutely super powerful. Allah will give you insight to things you could never imagine. He will bless you to see things that nobody else can see. He will allow you to sit in a meeting with 100 people, and all of them will be wrong. Allah will show you what to say. He will do that because He the Almighty is with you when you keep Him first. And we'll change this world. Trumps and all the Trump lookalikes, all of them. You go on to the hellfire. Don't worry about them. Allah's in good, so don't worry about them. They're going to get theirs, but we got to do our part. But we have to be patient. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for speaker, Brother Kadir, he just jumped right on it. Said, yes, I will certainly do that. I'd like now to share with you, and he set the tone really for the rest of this weekend. If you'll open the brochure at your table, you'll see what we're trying to accomplish this weekend. As mentioned, we are interested in developing the role of the Khalifah. What are we supposed to be doing in society? And as we send our children to school, that starts with creating an Islamic perspective, because it is Allah who creates. Man simply, and women simply discover, but Allah creates. And we have to be about the process of helping our children understand
Allah's creation and to see all that He has given us and favored us with. And how do we do that? My daughter is a professor at Florida A&M University, and also she works as well at Florida State University sometimes as well in Tallahassee, Florida. And she's in the College of Education at Florida A&M, and she was saying that the students go to the content areas to get the firm background in biology, math, and science, or whatever they're into, but then they come to the College of Education to get the pedagogy. And I was wondering, why aren't the two combined? Why aren't you learning about your discipline in a way that you'll be able to teach it, and also in a way that you would be able to share it from in an effective way? And of course, she was saying, Mama, that conversation is too long. I'll have to talk to you later. And at another time, maybe when I'm visiting Atlanta, we can, sit down and have that conversation all day and all night about that. But it really started me to thinking as I was helping to prepare for this conference, there is this great need for us to combine not only the content and the disciplines that we are offering our children, but also an Islamic perspective and create an understanding so that you begin with that spiritual aspect and then you're able to move forward with that. So that's the whole idea behind this conference. Then also you will see that tomorrow we're at the school, tomorrow morning. We'll be at the school and we will have our conference participants in somewhat of a classroom setting where they will be learning how to effectively implement lessons in the STEM and STEAM areas, and also some things that you will need to do. We'll be looking at several different things. We're going to share with you, hopefully, the Algebra Project by Bob Moses. Bob Moses was a veteran civil rights activist, and he started the Algebra Project. And he started it with the notion that that in order for our children to compete academically in college, they have to have a firm foundation in mathematics and in algebra. And that really understanding mathematics was really a key to social justice and equity. That if you understood how society works, then you would be able to gather social justice. So we're going to hear from a visual presentation from them. We're also going to take a look at hearing from some materials used by the Center for Contemporary Study of Islam, which is an institution that takes a look at ways that we can take the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and other things, and put it within the contemporary context around inquiry. And some of our Muhammad School alumni and students and teachers will be sharing with you additional methods and things. And then we're very, very fortunate here in Atlanta at our school to have a full-fledged garden that is up and going. And so we're going to share with you that. And then we're going to take a look at some inspiration from Dr. George Washington Carver as well, another Southern person. And then on Saturday morning, we're going to hear again from some professionals who are alumni as well in the STEAM and STEAM areas. And we'll be at the Drury Inn and Suites off of Virginia Avenue. And you're welcome to attend that, some of our community members, if you'd like to participate in that. But on Saturday morning, what we're trying to do is to say, okay, what grants can we get? What opportunities in the field, in these fields, can we explore so that we can enhance our programs at our schools? Because unfortunately, there's a lot of money out there. A lot of times we just don't know how to access it and how to get it. And then we're going to take a look at whether or not as a network or as individual schools, we'd like to go after some of those grants and things. And then Sunday morning is really more of a session for our network members in terms of committee reports that we would have and other things. But the community is also welcome to stay for that and hear, about those updates. So that's somewhat of an overview of the weekend. Today, we're trying to just get you in a spiritual frame of mind and just kind of get your mind focused around our purpose and what we're trying to accomplish. Tomorrow, we're doing some hands-on activities at the school for that. And then on Saturday, we're taking a look. Okay, now we have all this information. What are we going to do with it? How can we implement it in our schools? And once again, the general community members, you're welcome to attend any of the sessions. Now, the last thing is, and Karan, I'm just going to go on into this if you want to come up and join me. We're going to take a look at thanking our sponsors and supporters. Initially, I had written and rewritten and resubmitted a grant to the National Science Foundation to hopefully pay for the sponsorship of this conference on its own. But we weren't able to do that. The National Science Foundation wanted us to have already gathered data and done a study and then have a conference to take a look at what we had studied and things. Well, we aren't at that point. So I asked the network members, well, would you like to go ahead and have a conference? And then we just see if we can get some additional sponsors for it. And then they all agreed. And so we set out to do that. And on the very back of your page, you will see the logos of the businesses. Some of them will be joining us tomorrow, but you will see the logos and the names of those persons that offered their financial support as well to our conference. And I wanted Sister Karan to see if she had any specific remarks about any of these. And then also we have Brother Hud Williams here from the Amana Mutual Funds Trust that is also one of our major sponsors, and he's going to come up and just greet the group.
Yes, I want to say thank you to our sponsors because, in the Quran, the question is asked, who will loan to Allah a beautiful loan? A beautiful loan. And we know Allah doesn't need anything from us. And so that loan is really to his creation. It's who will serve my people on behalf of the community. So we thank these wonderful folks because we did reach out and say our original goal was that you didn't have to pay anything. That was the goal. So mashallah, and in the future, that's going to happen. But alhamdulillah, when we reached out to these great people, they said yes. And so there's one who's not mentioned. And I just got a text that they just sent their money in. So I do want to say their name so that the angels will write them down and they'll be amongst all these great people. And that is the Memphis Masjid. And if you look at the people here who have contributed, you see that it is not just local, from all over the country. So we had individuals, we had organizations, we had masajid, and it's just a beautiful show of people stepping up to help us do what we need to do. So alhamdulillah.
Thank you, Sister Karan. And I also wanted to mention as well, and I hope maybe he's still online, but he is live streaming this evening. Imam Nadir Ahmed called this morning to say he wasn't feeling well. He had gotten his flight reservations, hotel reservations, and everything. And then he became ill, so he would not be able to join us. But he's the last contributor, El Ikhlas Training Academy, and made sure that his contribution to sponsor the conference so that others could come. On tomorrow, by tomorrow, inshallah, Brother Adam Bayah from the 150 will be here. I think he and his wife were traveling today, and they're going to perhaps join us on tomorrow. Isla will not be able to be here, but they sent their contribution in. And then also the masjid in Miami, which is Masjidullah Ansar, sent in their contribution, and about 4 or 5 other members of the masjid in Miami, Florida, sent in contributions as well. We already mentioned that the New Freedom Network is New Freedom Horizon, is that Network or Horizon? Okay, Network, that their members, they're live streaming this for us this evening. They won't be able to stay with us for the rest of the weekend, but that's a very energetic group of young people that are getting together to promote activities and to let the world know that the Muslim community in America is alive and well and doing a lot of different things. Okay, anything else, Mujahideen, you want to say? That's good. Okay. All right. Okay. I want to make sure that we give everyone their due. At this time, Brother Hood, if you'll come up, please, as our Man of Mutual Funds Trust Fund sponsor. And I was in Chicago, and I asked the person that was at the table, did they sponsor conferences and make donations to schools? And they said yes, and the person you need to talk to is Hood Williams. I said, okay. I know, I got that. I got that.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dr. Khan has this way of asking you. It's almost like a Jedi, where it's like, well, I know you sponsor and I know you're going to help us out. I'm like, I'm going to help you out. So, alhamdulillah. You know, I just moved away from Atlanta. And so some folks don't know I left because they see me back here quite often. And I hope that continues because Atlanta is home. You know, my Nana is here. My family is still here. And so Atlanta will always be home in my heart. But now we're talking about business. So I want to talk for a second about the triple package for educational institutions. It's a triple package for educational institutions. And it starts really with 3 layers. So the first layer is for the organization itself. And so one of the things I want to encourage educational institutions is to think about a brokerage account. So a brokerage account is where it allows you to buy and sell stocks, but it also allows you to receive stocks. So when you're thinking about financial fiduciary duties in 2022, when you're thinking about what are the best practices for Muslim nonprofits across the board, one of those best practices is to be more accommodating to your benefactors, to your beneficiaries, to the people who are donating money. So one way is to help them out. So H&I, which stands for high net worth individuals, we all love to have them, especially for our institutions of learning, is that they have a problem, right? Anybody know what their problem is?
Spend their money.
Spend their money?
Without getting taxed.
Exactly. The problem is the IRS. That taxes, they like to collect them often. And so a brokerage account, it allows for institutions, it allows for donors to donate stock instead of donating cash. So just to give you a short example, say if a person has $1,000 of Tesla stock and is appreciated to $5,000 or $10,000, and they want to help an organization, so they can donate $10,000 cash, go sell their stock, have a $9,000 gain, have a 20% tax, and then they will top that up to give the $10,000 in donation. Or you can ask them, well, we have the ability to accept stock donations. So they can transfer you those shares. You as a nonprofit can sell those shares. And those shares, so you sell them with $10,000, you actually give a receipt to your high net worth individual, and they get the full write-off of the value. So for that $1,000 that they bought the share, they get a $10,000 write-off. So it's an excellent opportunity. Some of the organizations that we talk to around the country have saying that our highest donation were $5,000 or $10,000. But after we talk to our donors and say we are able to accept stock donations, it goes from $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000. And can organizations use that money? Yes, I'm thinking that. So that's number one. And so you say, Brother Hood, how much does a brokerage account, Saturna Capital, the company I work for, the managers of Mohammed Mutual Fund, we can open a brokerage account for you. If you don't buy or sell at all in the year, it's only $25 a year. So if you open for $100, that'll carry you up for 4 years. And in that time, God willing, you will have donations coming in that will really take care of that. So how does that sound? Great. So I said we're going to talk about the triple package. So the first one's for the organization. The second one is for the people who put their blood, sweat, and tears in that organization. Who are we talking about? Teachers. Y'all knew that one, right? People were like me, my blood, sweat, and tears. So the teachers of the organization. And so this one is near and dear to a couple of people's in the hearts because people have already talked to us about it. And so I want to talk about retirement plan, right? Don't teachers deserve that?
Yes.
Yeah. And so retirement plan, when I was on the board, people would tell you that I was always about the budget, right? And so when we're thinking about retirement plan and I'm working for this institution, it's like, how can we find a plan that's not going, we can't give the teachers what they deserve. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing that, right? But what can we do to take care of them, the people who are taking care of our most precious resources, our children? And so when you think about a retirement account, there's a few options. There's a 401k, there's a 403b, but there's also this plan called a simple IRA. So the simple IRA, you have two choices. The first choice is you can match up to 3% for whatever your teacher puts in their retirement account. So the teacher puts in 1%, you can put 1%. Teacher put in 3%, you can put in 3%. And even 1 out of 3 years, you can actually match up to 1%. So if you're having a rough year or you're very starting out, you can have 1%. So if you're thinking about a $500,000 salary budget, that's $5,000, right? But there's also another option for the simple IRA where you can actually just put in 2% of their salary. Because when you think about it, teachers who might be on a limited salary as it is, if you tell them, oh, we're going to match 3%, and they say, you want me to take another 3% out of my paycheck? You already paying me peanuts. Now you want to pay me just the shells, right? And so the other option is that you could put in 2% for them. So if you have a $100,000 budget, that's $2,000. So, that could be a lot, but that's not a bridge too far to connect. So if you think about 2% in a simple IRA, have them being able to invest something for their future. They can contribute to it as well. So they can contribute their own money to it. And so when they're leaving, when they're retiring, when they have another option, they have something they can look forward to. And so that's another thing that our company offers, a simple IRA. And guess how much it costs for a simple IRA for us to manage that? $50 zero. There's no charge for a simple IRA. And that's today. I'm not sure, and I don't control prices. I'm not sure what's going to happen next year. But today, simple IRAs are no administrative fee to manage that. And so it's something that I think that organizations that are not doing it should really think about it because, we want people to have something for retirement. I do retirement presentations, and that's part of the focus of what we're doing when we talk about 401ks or IRAs or Roth IRAs. But the simple IRA is an excellent opportunity for nonprofits organizations. And the third one in the triple package is that we're all gathered here for who? The children, the students. And so when I think about the students, we have a program, and it's pretty popular. It's called Educational Savings Account, or ESA for short. So the ESA allows for folks to put in $2,000 a year per child for their education. And they can use this for primary or secondary education. So some parents can use it for Mohammed schools, or they can use it for Morehouse College or Spelman. And they must be distributed by the age of 30, or you can transfer it to another sibling. And so these three items together are called my educational triple package, one for the organization, one for the teachers, and one for the students. Just to wrap this up, I just want to tell you a quick 2 or 3 sentences about the Amana Mutual Funds. The Amana Mutual Funds was started in 1986. And part of it was a way where how can we save and invest for our future, but do so in a way that's aligned with our values as Muslims. So there's plenty of times when you can invest in the S&P 500 or other things, and you're buying banks, you're buying Anheuser-Busch, you're buying Smithfield Pork, all these things that we don't believe in as Muslims. And so what the Amana Mutual Fund does is screen out anything that's not aligned with our faith. And number 2, it actually looks at the financial statements of the companies to make sure they're not high in debt, they're not high in interest income, and that the impermissible revenues that they might have are below 5%. And so we were started in 1986. Alhamdulillah, right now we have almost 4 to 5 billion assets under management,
And we have 4 different mutual funds for a variety of investment objectives. We have the growth fund, which is kind of high risk, high return. We have the income fund, which is more steady, looks at large US companies who are paying a dividend. We have a third one, our developing world fund, that looks for growth companies or growth opportunities in the developing world, in Malaysia and Indonesia. And the last one is a participation fund. So this is a fixed income fund. So this is a fund that a lot of institutions might be interested in because it's not in the stock market. So if you're saving for an institution, if you're saving for a goal, and then there's a 10, 20% correction in the stock market, my phone's going to ring. Like, hey, what happened? I think someone said earlier, we don't control some of those things, right? And so the participation fund is fixed investments, Islamic fixed investments. It has a low return, but the point of it is capital preservation. And so that's all I have to say. I'm Hood Williams, like they said. I was on the board of the Atlanta Masjid of Al-Islam and also on the board for the school for the last 10 years. And it was really a joy, a labor of love. So I recently moved to Dallas, Texas, where I'm the regional manager for all of the Southeast. So I cover Florida, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma. So if there's any questions about any of those 3 items, please let me know. We would love to help the community, inshallah. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
And in your bag that you received, there is a flyer with contact information for Amana Mutual Funds. And then also, if you want to get HUD's direct number, then please do so and talk with him about that. In your program guide, we do want to just take a look at each session. And we blocked our sessions into blocks. So this evening is a session, tomorrow morning will be a session, tomorrow afternoon, and then also, well, not tomorrow afternoon because we'll be involved in Juma and other things as well. And then on Saturday, we want to take a look at how beneficial individual sessions are. So if you wouldn't mind, just take a quick moment to do the survey that's in, and then, okay, if you'll just fold it and then we'll collect them at the registration table before this evening. Because we want everything that we do, we want to always do it in the best manner, and we also want to see how we can grow and develop. And I know that there are just a few of you, there are just about 20 of us left in the room this evening. But was this informational for you? Was it informative? Was it a good way for you to think about it? And what we're going to do as we wrap up the evening before we conclude with the Salat. And HUD, if you have some business cards, if you could leave those with, if you're leaving, now please make sure you leave those. I want to see if we can get I don't know if we can pull it up on the larger screen or not, but we'd like to end with just sort of a reflective song. It's important at the end of every day. We start out the day with Salat and we end our day with Salat. But throughout the day, it's important that we take a few minutes to always just reflect on what's going on. And it helps us not only become reflective practitioners, but it also has a way of centering us. And I'm looking for Donnie McClurkin and Yolanda Adams' prayer. And I have it on CD. I'm old school. I always have my old school backup. So I have a CD with it on it if we can't pull it up. But it's right over there.
CD player.
Mm-hmm. A CD player. I even have a tape recorder and a record player.
So we can just play it on here and put your mic to it.
Okay. So if you can, Donnie McClurkin and Yolanda Adams, it's the prayer. If you want to. Yeah, he got it. And his brother William's still around, Karan's husband. He always teases me about my CDs and my cassette tapes and things, and says, Dr. Kano said you're going to milk and be obsolete. And I said, that's okay. Okay. But this is just, a moment for us to just kind of reflect on what we are about. Did you get it? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And Celine, Dion, and Andrea Pascal really made the song famous. And I think our secretary here, the master sister, Nima, one of her favorite songs.
I pray you'll be our eyes and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer when we lose our way. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe. I pray we'll find your light. I pray we'll find your light. Hold it in our heart. And hold it in our heart. When stars go out each night. Stars go out each night. Remind us where you are. Remind us where you are. Let this be our Let this be our prayer. When shadows still are there. When shadows still are there. Oh, lead us to a place. Oh, my. Guide us with your grace. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be a world where pain and sorrow will be ended, and every heart that's broken will be mended, and we'll remember we are all God's children, reaching out to touch you, reaching to the sky. And watch us from above. We hope it's so we'll find another soul to love. Let this be our prayer. Let this be our prayer. Just like every child. Just like every child needs to find a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be saved. Need to find a place. Guide us with your grace. must fade, so will be.
Once again, that's the prayer. It was originally written by David Foster, and I forget the other lady's name, but the artists that were singing it were Yolanda Adams and Donnie McClurkin. And as I said, it's a very famous piece by Celine Dion and also Andrea Pascali as well. They have an Italian English version, very, very beautiful prayer. But it also sets the tone to that we are about creating the best world for, for our children and for people. At this time, I'm going to ask, let's see, did we have, Imam Kadir, would you mind closing us out in dua? Please. Are there any other questions or comments or remarks that need to be made at this time? Okay, I'd like to acknowledge our board member in the back, Brother Yahya. Mohammed, one of our consultative board members, joined us this evening, and we had one or two other teachers and community members that came in as well. And so far, we have people here from North Carolina, New Jersey, Virginia, and Tampa, Florida, and some local schools as well. And then tomorrow, we anticipate having other participants join us from other cities. Okay. Yes. We'll see you all in the morning at 8 o'clock. I want to thank our bus driver, Brother Mahdi Sabri, for helping pick us up, and he's going to pick you all up in the morning. Mahdi Salim, I'm sorry. He'll be picking you up at the hotel in the morning at 7:30, so you can get to the school around 8.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Allah help us and thank you for blessing us for this day and guide us and help us to go closer and closer to your guidance. Amen.
Yeah.